Well, here we are at Carruthers, California at the annual Legends of Kearny Bowl race reunion, and I'm here with one of the founding members, Jim Perry. Jim, thanks for having us first of all at your house, and I'm going to show some cars later, but can you tell me a little bit how this all got started?
Well, back about 25 years ago, I was able to purchase a car that was driven by Joe Lobia from Easton, and he was a friend of mine, and I always wanted one when I was going through the 60s, and so I was able to purchase that car, and it all started there, and we got it to running, and then there was only a couple cars that we could take on the track at the time: Everett's car, the Sargent car, and actually the Pombo car, and then my car. So we were able to go to a few races like at Hanford and Tulare, and gee whiz, it's like there's another guy shows up and wants to talk about the car, and then another, and then another, and eventually, as you can see today, there's, which I don't think they're all here, but there's closer to 25 to 30 cars now. They've found them and they've restored them.
So where do you guys race at, Jim? In the area here, in the valley, or whatever?
Madera. We've been to Stockton, and we've been to Roseville, and we've been to Tulare and Hanford, and once in a while we get over to Santa Maria, and but it's become quite a group, and they're all excited about getting the cars and getting out and showing them off.
So it's mainly a lot of the old drivers, old owners, or what's the combination? I know you didn't used to drive, right?
No.
So you're just a car owner, car builder, and a promoter of the Legends of Kearny Bowl. So
there are a few old drivers still, but most of them are fans of this era, and once they saw what we were doing, like I say, they went out and found the old cars and restored them, and this is what you see when you take the camera down the road there. So
memory lane. So what we're going to do is we're just going to show you some of the cars that are here today, hopefully talk to a few drivers, and they've got a great luncheon set up for everybody here today. And Jim, I might catch you later and see if we can catch something else. So if there's anything else you want to add, please do it.
Okay, today we're going to honor the vets that are here, and you'll see the flags on the cars, and then my grandkids will be here at just before lunch, and those grandkids of mine are going to give the vets that are here a pin that show our appreciation as the Legends of Kearny Bowl.
Right on. Well, look for the Legends of Kearny Bowl somewhere kind of track near you. So I'll catch you in a little bit, Jim. Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Well, now I'm here with the 56 with Wayne Kaluskian. I hope I said that right, Wayne, but it's close enough. Yes. We're here at the Kearny Bowl's Legend reunion. And so, Wayne, can you tell me a little bit about your car?
Yes, I bought this car from Walt Calkins. He lives in Idaho now. He used to race at San Jose Speedway in the mid-'70s. And it was a number 33 orange car with a sprint car front end and stuff. We changed the front end and added some fiberglass to the body and stuff. And originally it had a 68 Corvette Chevy engine in it.
Nice.
And I changed that last year because I got a good deal on another motor, so we changed that.
So were you a driver at all, Wayne, or?
I helped out on a few cars in my lifetime, but I never drove. You know, I did race go-karts at Kearny Bowl twice when I was about 11 years old.
So you didn't drive one of these.
No,
now,
never
are these the super modifieds of the old days? Because did you ever go to the old San Jose Speedway?
Yeah, I used to go there. I went to Kearny Bowl every weekend.
Yeah, Kearny Bowl was a track that's no longer around,
Right.
and that was in Fresno area, correct?
Yes.
So I see you got a GoPro on here. Do you drive it out on the track, or are you the one that takes it out on the track for these Legends?
I drive it, yes. Like I said, I had a lot of fun experiences going to the races and helping people out in their cars, but now I get to drive, and it's exciting.
That's great. Well, we're glad you're here, Wayne. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you,
Appreciate
Mike.
showing your car off a little bit. So now I'm with Bob Hutton, the owner of the 45 Haley's Tire Selma car. And Bob, thanks for coming out here today. So how'd you get your car? What's going on with it?
Actually, I built the car. It's fresh built.
From the ground up, all tubing and everything?
Yeah, ground up, built it by pictures.
So what car did you model it after?
The 1967 era car.
Okay. So that was at the old Speedway, San Jose Speedway, and over here Kearny Bowl and stuff?
That'd be Kearny Bowl, Clovis Speedway, San Jose, or Bakersfield, or Cayucas.
or wherever they were running, right?
it.
So you mentioned that your dad is used to race too. Did you drive or anything like that?
No, I never drove. I just watched him.
So do you drive this car now
I drive it now.
in the Legends of Kearney Bowl races?
Correct. Yeah.
So what's the last track you drove at?
Madera Speedway.
How'd you do?
Sixth in the main and won the heat.
Oh, right on. That's good. That's good. Out of what, 7 cars? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
About 12 cars. 12 cars
good.
in the main.
That's good. That's good. So what kind of motor you got underneath this, Bob?
It's actually a 327 full race. Yeah.
And the safety stuff that's inside here, you put all that stuff in and everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much all safety. Yeah.
So your dad used to drive. Where did he drive at?
Everywhere. Yeah. When I had a race, he was there. Yeah. So mainly Kearny Bowl and Clovis Speedway, Friday night or Sunday. And Saturday could be San Jose, could be Bakersfield, or could be Cayucas.
So what are some of the nice memories? I mean, I know there's bad memories and good memories. What would be maybe one great memory you have of going with your dad to the races?
Basically just the championship trophies. Yeah, I've kept all of them forever.
So he won the championship in what years?
64.
64.
Yeah.
Was that the Kearney Bowl or one of the tracks?
No, it was Bakersfield Speedway and Atascadero Speedway.
Wow, Atascadero. I didn't know they had a racetrack there.
there.
It's still there.
Still there.
Anyway, Bob, well, thank you very much, and we appreciate you bringing your car and showing it off out here tonight and or today, and we appreciate you being here.
We'll fire them up after a while so they can hear
Oh,
them.
yeah, we'll get those going, too. Thank you. Well, now we're here with the 55 car, nice bright yellow car, and I'm with Richard Stumpfhauser and Curtis Taylor. And Richard, since you kind of built the car, and we'll get to Curtis here in a minute on how driving it. So, Richard, how did this car come about? How did you find it? You built it, or what did you do?
He bought the frame out of Nevada, and then the rest of the car we built from that part up. And he allowed me to experiment with this car. Back in the 50s, they did run automatics and 60s. So everybody else runs 3-speeds. So we decided, let's go back to an automatic and see how it's going to work. Well, the technology today with the automatics were significantly better than what it was back then. So now we built the car around the automatic, and it don't have a converter in it. It's straight through, and it's got a ball valve hydraulic to engage and disengage the transmission. It still has a reverse forward and 2-speed forward. It's a power glide transmission.
Okay. So did you build the body, or did you buy that, or how did you get the body designed, or so did you patent it after somebody?
Part of the body that came with it here. The rest of it we built, formed and built on it. All the interior was hand built, the floorboards and stuff, and the engine mounts and the radiator mounts and all the shock mounts and everything were hand built for this car.
So you fabricated all those?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so Curtis, you're the driver, right?
Yes.
How'd you get into driving?
You know what? All of my life I've been around it, and raising a family, decided that was more important. And then had some illnesses. I'm a kidney transplant patient twice. And so after that, it was time to maybe start living a little. And Richard and me are related by marriage somehow.
Too bad. I'm sorry.
Somehow, we have great kids. And so Richard decides, you find a car and he'll do the brain work. So all I do is drive it. He does everything. I do not touch it.
Wow. So you're one of those drivers that shows up to the track with your helmet bag and your fire suit and get in the car.
Somewhat. And we're learning daily and getting better. Just takes time and money.
Well, yeah, that does. So you're a big boy. How do you fit in that thing?
Slowly.
No hurry getting in. You don't come through the top. You come through the side of the
we
door.
had to make some changes to fit in it because it had to put a loop in it because my head sticks above the roll bar. And it's been a learning process. There's no doubt.
So where are you driving? Are you driving this car now, or are you going to some of the tracks with the Legends of Kearney Bowl, or what?
Every race we run.
So what was the last race that you ran?
Madera 2 weeks ago.
And how'd you do?
It's getting better.
Okay.
But people are teaching me how to do stuff, which Richard's taught me a lot. Be patient, don't run the wall. And I hit the wall once, but after my correction from him, I haven't hit the wall since.
So your driver hits the wall. What do you say to him when he comes in?
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again. And did you?
No.
No. See, fast learner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, great. We thank you for bringing your car out and look forward to maybe hearing them run later. I know at one point everybody turns the cars on and the motors are loud and everything, and that's what we come to hear too. But anyway, thank you guys for bringing your car out. Thank you. So now we're with CJ Stubbles, the driver of the 84 car. Beautiful looking car. Looks like it's been on the tracks. Got some rubber burnt into the tires and dirt and stuff. So, CJ, can you tell me a little bit about your car and how you got it and what you do with it?
Yeah, this is a mid-60s super modified. It originally was a West Capitol car or Grass Valley. I bought it from Mike McCann, which I don't know where he found it, but he restored it and then sold it to me, and we started running it at Roseville annually, and then I got hooked up with the Legends of Kearny Bowl and just been having fun.
So do you live down here in the valley?
No, I live up in Grass Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, so Roseville was real close, and I'm part of the West Capitol Alumni Association.
So you used to drive before?
Yeah, I used to run at the fairgrounds in San Jose.
Okay. Yeah, I remember those days, different from the asphalt track over there by the Eastridge area. So you drive it now. What's the last race you ran?
We ran Stockton, the last race. I think it was in September last year.
So you have some upcoming races coming, or?
Yeah, we want to try to run with the Kearny Bowl guys about once a month this year, and then we'll make the 3 Stockton races since we're up in Grass Valley.
So I asked people memorable moments about their car and driving. What would be maybe one that stands out in your mind about your driving career or going to a race or whatever it is?
In this car?
Or it can be another car or whatever.
Well, most memorable in this car has been that when I first got it from Mike McCann, it had a number 10 gear in it. And we were in Roseville, and I kept telling him, I don't think it's right. I didn't have a gear chart or anything. It had been so many years. And I had a 383 in it that I'd borrowed from my cousin. And
out of his street car or what?
No, out of one of his race cars. Yeah, it was a stock car motor. And I was going down the back straightaway, or front straightaway, and just as I hit the corner, the sucker let loose. You know, I'd never had a motor blow like that. It just blew. And I kind of slid sideways and kind of backed it into the wall a little bit. And the guys would still give me a hard time about how much oil I left on the track in Roseville. They said they'd never seen that much oil on the track in Roseville.
Well, you're famous for something there,
Yeah,
right, CJ?
right,
So
right.
what kind of motor do you have in it now?
It's just a 350.
350. And did you build the frame, or was it just like this when you got it and you just added a lot more stuff to it?
Yeah, it was just like this when I got it from Mike McCann. I've gone through the motor, and then I put power steering in it because this car was originally a dirt car, thin, narrow tires, and it had a forklift steering box in it, and that doesn't work with these big old tires.
Well, great. Thank you, CJ. We appreciate you being here and supporting the Kearney's Legends of Kearny Bowl, and we'll go talk to some other drivers. So now we're with Gary Panzini, a legend in his own mind from Morgan Hill, and he has got his 85 sprint car, and I can remember as a kid reading in the Morgan Hill Times about you racing back east and stuff. So can you kind of tell us the history of the car, where you got it, did you build it, some of the memorable races for you, Gary?
Yeah, the car was, I always loved the midgets, but the money was in sprint cars. So my dad always been a sprint car owner, and we had this built by Hank Henry from El Cajon. Okay. And we probably run it around 20 times. We only ran it in the money shows, so I always usually drove for someone else. But it's been a good car. We took the car back east. The very first Hutton 100 on ABC Wild Rose Sports, it made the show there. We took it to...
So what year was that, Gary?
Probably... I'm trying to read that folder right there.
It says
The one to the left. I can't see what year it was.
May 1st, I know that, but who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Probably about
we're
the
getting
early-
old, we can't
yeah,
see. So.
Probably about the early 70s.
Okay.
And this is the car we took to the very first Canadian Challenge Cup, where we ran 5 nights in a row, 500-lap races, 3 pavement, 2 dirt. And this car at Skagit Speedway, which has the big race now, we broke the track record with this car. Wow. First time they started that. And we won the 5-race challenge series up there.
So you used to drive for your dad, and then when you weren't running the big shows, you ran for other drivers, correct? or for other owners.
Yes.
So who were some of those owners you used to drive for, Gary?
In the midget divisions, I was very fortunate. I drove for two of the best midget owners you could imagine. I drove for Sim Clark and Harry Stryker. And when you're driving those two cars, you're going to win because you have the best equipment. And it just, anybody could win those cars. Then I went back east. I drove for Gilhausen, run Indianapolis. I run for a guy named Schweitzer out of Pennsylvania. And those are the two main ones I drove back east there.
So when you say Indianapolis, you're not talking about the Speedway. You're talking about the short tracks back there, or did you drive at the Speedway?
No, never drove at the Speedway. The closest I ever come was we ran all the mile dirts, and I used to go break in the cars at the 5/8 pavement track. So like, let's say, just throw a name out there, Billy Vukovic is running Milwaukee this week. Well, the car that he's going to run next week has got to be broke in for oil leaks. So I would get to drive those Ranger cars, make sure there's no oil leaks. You know, we're not going very fast, but we got a chance to.
No, but yeah, you're in an Indy car and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I noticed you got the real small tires on the front and the big left rear tire a little bit more, but the right side looks pretty big. Does your car have power steering or anything like that?
No. This car does not have power steering. We didn't have power steering those days. These was the tires.
You are old, Gary.
Oh yeah. This is qualifying setup at Ascot Speedway. This was our qualifying setup, and then we run the mile dirts. Of course, the tires got wider, you know, but we had no power steering.
So how many races do you think you won in your career, Gary?
I'm going to guess, because we didn't run a lot, I think when I was figuring about 20, 21 races. Okay. You know, midgets and sprints.
Last year when we were here, we talked about a couple, and I know people don't always like to talk about it, but a couple bad crashes that you had. And I mean, like I say, we talked for probably 45 minutes to an hour just about that stuff with you and me and Mario and standing around. Any races stand out in your mind besides the crashes, or some of the big ones that you won that to this day you still hang your hat on that and go, man, that was a great race?
Well, you know, the trip to Canada, we won those races up there, those were always fun. My first CRA win was at El Centro, and we went down there, and Dad never wanted me to go down there because every year it's a rough track, El Centro, and we usually kill the driver every year down there. Never wanted to go down. I said, Dad, we're going down this time. Went down there, won the main event. It was nonstop, so it set a track record. That was my first CRA win. That stands out. It's a big time, you know, and run the mile champ dirt cars. That's what I always wanted to do. And when I ran those, that was just unbelievable fun. I remember the first time I ran the fairgrounds. What
fairgrounds?
Indianapolis Fairgrounds. Okay, the mile dirt. And me and A.J. Foyt had identical qualifying times. So we're side by side, getting ready to get in the cars. I couldn't get to my car because people were around him so bad, and I'm trying to tell him, hey, I'm the guy driving the car next to him. I need to sneak in the crowd there, you know. So that was the thrill, you know.
And they're probably going, who are you? Gary who? Yeah, no, you're in the back, aren't you? No, sir, I'm right up front here.
Yeah, you're cleaning the pits. Yeah, no, you're true, you know. Had no name then. But
so one of the things, Gary, that I heard recently is you had a little heart issue. What the heck is that all about?
It's just stress. Stress is we sold a business, and with the Uncle Sam paying him off, you know, he had to have his share. I did not realize how big a share he's supposed to get.
Yeah. But you know, putting a plug in for what's your wife's business?
Celia Panzini, and we run a foundation in Morgan Hill. The woman just fantastic with her foundation. She was Woman of the Year.
It's called Cecilia's Closet, by the way. He might not say it, but Cecilia's Closet.
It's actually called Cecilia's. It's the Edward Boss Prado Foundation.
Yeah, and it's good. They do a lot of good charity work. In fact, my wife volunteers on Tuesdays there. But anyway, Gary, thank you for bringing your car out. It's great to see you here. And we're going to go talk to some other drivers. So now I'm with the legend of motor racing on the West Coast, Kenny Takaguchi. And Kenny was calling races for years at the old San Jose Speedway, and then I don't know if you did them at the fairgrounds, but I know that you announced at Kearny Bowl and Fresno and all over the place. So, Kenny, it's a great honor to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved into auto racing?
Well, I tell you, I've been very fortunate. I've been blessed. I've announced a lot of races. I've written about a lot of races. I actually did my first announcing in 1949, believe it or not. You know,
you're not that old.
No, I know, but I started at a pretty young age. How's that? But no, and then I became a regular announcer at Kearny Bowl in 1961, and then, of course, from there, San Jose, Altamont, Clovis Speedway. The days that we raced 4 times a week, believe it or not, Fresno, Friday night, San Jose Saturday. We had a day race from 12 to 4 at Altamont, and then we headed down to Clovis 4 times a week. And it was a hectic world. There was no time to sleep or anything, but it was fun. It was fun.
So what were the car counts back in those days, Kenny?
Well, San Jose Speedway, you were guaranteed you're going to have an A main, B main, and C main, and all the other tracks. We always had enough for a full B main, so I would say the car count average between 35 to 40, 45 every race.
So you called a lot of memorable races in your career. Could you pick one or two that maybe you thought that might stand out in your mind as some of the best races you've ever seen?
Well, San Jose Speedway stands out because the Johnny Key race. I remember the days that they went 200 laps, and there was no mandatory fuel stop or anything else. And you wonder, and you look at it, and Al Pombo summed it up best. I said, how do you do a chassis setup? The car gets lighter when you use more fuel. He said, you set it and forget it. If you make a mistake setting it up before the race, forget it. You're going to have to race. And, we see these cars go 200 laps without stopping,
right.
And it's just amazing.
The fuel tanks that they had on those things were huge.
I mean, absolutely. And there was some disastrous cases because of the large fuel tanks. No fuel cells.
Wow. So you saw a lot of races at San Jose. What about Fresno and Kearny Bowl? I mean, those are before my time, but maybe some listeners out there remember those tracks. So how big was Clovis?
Well, Clovis Speedway, one of the most memorable races I had back in 1964, there was a young driver named Dick Atkins. And we had a 200-lap open competition race. You run what you brung, sprint cars, anything but a midget. And I remember Dick Atkins, 200 laps there, and he was on the way up then. And it just, the sports writers, announcers like myself, we said, there's a guy that's going to make it, and sure enough, but his life was cut short there not too long after that in a disastrous accident down at Asphalt when that same night Don Bronson lost his life, too, and it was just too bad. But I've seen a lot of memorable races, and I've been very fortunate. That's all I can say, Mike, is that more young people should have a chance to do the things I've done.
So how big was Kearny Bowl? What size track was that?
Kearny Bowl, well, let's go back earlier. It was Airport Speedway. That was a 50-mile track, and then it turned into Italian Entertainment Park, and then Kearny Bowl in later years. At first, a dirt track and then a paved track. But it was a sellout every Friday night. It was a sellout. I mean, that was the only game in town.
Right.
And
how big was Fresno?
Fresno, you mean track-wise?
Yeah, the track.
A quarter mile.
Okay. And then San Jose was what?
One-third.
One-third.
And Altamont was half a mile, and Clovis was a half a mile.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here, Kenny. Like I say, this is a legend of racing in the Bay Area in California. If you have any stories that you'd like to hear him tell, all you got to do is pull Kenny aside like what I did and ask him a few questions. So, Kenny, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for putting me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your coverage today.
All right. Yeah, this is live on ESPN. Yeah, right. No.
Thank you very much.
So now this is the annual herding the cats, trying to get the drivers, owners, fans, pit crew members into this photo op that none of them want to be in. So they're still trying to hide. Everett Evan right there. There's a bunch of people in there. So yeah, so this is always fun, trying to herd the cats. So once again, now we're with legend Howard Kading. Can move up just a little bit, Howard. There we go, because the cord's not going to reach. So Howard, is this a car that you used to drive?
No, but it's one just like it. He done a good blueprint job of everything, and made it. It's got a bladder fuel tank in it, which Pete Winter's cars never had any bladders in them, but that's a good safety device.
So where did you drive this car at, Howard?
Different tracks, from San Jose to Madera and Merced. And
so did you have an asphalt car and a dirt car, or just drove the same car at different tracks?
Well, this is a Pete Winters car, and I drove another one car for Bobby and Boner Boats, run at Clovis a lot of different tracks. And similar, if they were all painted, some of these cars weren't that much difference.
So what was the favorite car that you used to drive in your era? I mean, you raced a long time. I'm sure there was more than one car, but what car stands out in your mind as one that no matter when you were in it, nobody could beat you?
All of them.
All of them.
My first car I remember the most, it was Northern California Auto Racing Association, and I sent in for the rules to build the car, and they sent me my number. My number was 281. That's the one I remember the most, and I had many other numbers and drove different ones a lot. My whole racing career came from all the good people that owned the cars and the guys that worked on them and the people that came to watch us.
Wow. So you raced all over. I mean, I know that I saw you raced up in Washington, and did you race in Canada too, or?
Not in Canada, but we went to Skagit, and I've been to Arizona, raced the Slick 50, and I drove the 3-car there. And so I drove but probably had my most wins in my 3-car when I was with Flyer Tabata.
Right.
But every car I had a lot of success, and we had about 10 different guys I drove for, but every one that I drove for was very good to me. Bobby and Larry and Boner Boats, Ed Single, and Al Jorgensen, and all these guys really made it all happen for me.
So what was your most memorable race? I know you won a lot of races and you were in a lot of races, but if there's 1 or 2 or 3 races that maybe stand out in your career, what would those be that you just remember went, wow, I won that race?
Well, not when I won, but the one I remember most at Hanford, the old Marshbanks track. Joe Lobia hit the fence, his fuel tank come out on the track, and I ran up on top of that tank with Al Jorgensen's car. My car caught on fire, and I got out of it so quick they thought I was still in it.
So they all ran over with maybe fire extinguishers or trying to pull you out? And
Well, I went to the burn center afterwards at Fresno.
well, yeah, I used to watch you race at the old Speedway in San Jose before they tore that down, and I saw you race at the fairgrounds. And I see your family's still doing racing. In fact, I think did Bud win last night? Or
Yeah, he's all the boys have done a lot of winning. As a matter of fact, Bud had won 3 Silver Crown championships. And the 4th year he lost it by 1 point. So he's done a lot of great racing, ran Indy light cars, and ran a lot of different programs. And he'll be at Hanford tonight.
Okay, so once again, living legend, Howard Kading, one of the great drivers, promoters, never says a bad thing about anybody that I've ever known of, and we appreciate you being out here today, Howard.
Okay, my last words would like to be, I thank everybody that came to the races and everybody that worked on my car and all the sponsors that helped me. From one of my first guys was Al Jorgensen one night, and he says, I hope you're racing next week, Howard. I said, I don't know, I just tore out a ring and pinion. And he says, how much that cost? I said, about $80. He writes me a check and hands it over the fence, And hundreds of good people like that to me and almost all the racers.
Right. Well, thank you, Howard. Enjoy your lunch today, and thanks for coming out for the Legends of Kearny Bowl.
Thank you for...
Hey, we do it together. I'm a race fan. I like to watch people race. Thank you. Well, now we're with the 24 car, Sean Delk, owner, driver, master mechanic. I'm not sure, but that's why we're here talking to him. So, Sean, tell us a little bit about your car.
Well, this is an old Al Costa car. I believe it was one of his last cars in the 70s. I picked it up from one of the other drivers, Tony Pereira, and been getting some of the bugs out here and there, and still got some issues, but we're having fun out there, and that's all that matters.
So, do you drive it?
Yes, yeah, I drove it. This will be my 3rd season with it, I believe. And before that, I got started in a couple other cars, a couple guys in the group, just playing around, and then got stuck with this one. Mother-in-law bought it for me. So.
Mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Wow, that's unusual, isn't it, race fans? Your mother-in-law buys you a car. So I noticed that your car has dirt tires on it. Everybody else has got asphalt tires. Why do you have the dirt tires instead of the asphalt?
Well, some of the guys aren't running tonight. We're running tonight in Tulare, and some of the guys from out of town are just don't want to get their cars dirty, but 2 show cars, but yeah, we got the dirt tires on, and not sure if I'm going to take it out tonight. I got a little shake in the front end, but
So you're also involved with the Legends of Kearney Bowl. You and I were talking about that before, about the Facebook page. Can you tell me about the Legends of Kearney Bowl? I mean, I talked to Jim earlier. He talked a little bit how it got started, but can you kind of fill me in on, why people should go to the Legends of Kearney Bowl Facebook page?
Yeah, we thought about doing something a few years ago and at a get together, and I told him I was like that I can start the page up, and so we started the page, and Gary Greeno helps run it, and when he has time, and I've been slacking this last few months, but yeah, Gary posts some crazy videos on there, some funny stuff, and we just have little interactions with the guys, meeting up at different guys' shops when they're
Do
working.
a little bench racing?
Yeah. So when they're working on a car or just BSing, we have a little Facebook here and there, some videos posted up. So
Right on. So how can people get on that Facebook page?
yeah, just you don't even have to have a Facebook account. It's open to the public. So you just Google Legends of Kearney Bowl, and it should pop up one of the first few. It'll say Facebook, and just go on there. You can look at some of the old pictures from the tracks, that we run out the last few years. There are videos, and yeah, anybody can get on there and check it out.
Right on. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it, Sean. And thanks for showing us your cars and being involved in Legends of Kearney Bowl. So right now, it sounds like they got the dinner bell ringing. So I'm going to go in there, take a few pictures in there.
The reason we're having the linguiça is because at San Jose and Kearney Bowl, they always had linguiça and rolls and Jim's Portuguese, so it's Portuguese sausage. And we do the beans, and then Jim decided that they needed peach cobbler, so I make the peach cobblers.
Handmade? Homemade?
Yes, homemade.
Oh,
the beans
yeah.
are homemade and the cobbler's homemade.
So who's your crew helping you?
I've got our oldest daughter, Jennifer, with the hat on. And then next to her is our daughter-in-law, Erica. And then next to Erica is our oldest granddaughter, Cameron. And then there's another girl running around, and that's Taylor, Jennifer's youngest. And then there's two boys running around. One is Adam, our grandson, and the other one is Cameron's boyfriend, Luke.
So how many years have we been doing this?
18.
18 years.
18 years.
So why do you do it? Why do you do this?
I do it because Jim gets so much enjoyment out of having everybody here and just to see him enjoy it.
Great.
It's a labor of love.
Well, now back after lunch. Great lunch it was. I'm here with Randy Wright, owner of the 1X car. Randy, so how'd you come about this car?
Well, I had a super modified prior, but it was an Edmunds type chassis and I couldn't fit in it, so I sold that car.
What, the seat wasn't big enough or too tall or?
Both.
Okay.
Everything. And I'm a big guy, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, we decided, a friend of mine had this chassis, but it was just a bare chassis, and I always loved Howard's cars. I always just thought they were, and I loved Howard. I mean, I loved watching the guy drive, and this car was really the first car that had rectangular sideboards of that era. And I thought, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can build it. So I talked to a couple friends of mine who are fabricators, and we started basically from a bare chassis or a roller, and completed this car.
So do you drive it now?
I drove it. The last time I drove it was about almost 2 years ago. We had a little incident in Santa Maria where the car got upside down, and so it's taken us 2 years to get it back to where we need it.
So you built this car from the frame up. I see you got the slick tires on it. Do you race at the asphalt tracks or?
We do both.
This way.
Oh, okay. We actually like both. Was a dirt stock car guy for many years, and I like running on the asphalt, but I love Tulare. That's always that's a highlight for me, is getting to run on a racetrack like that. That's a real racetrack.
Yeah, that's a fast, high bank track. So I see you're a member of the Legends of Kearney Bowls. How'd you get involved in that? Just by building the car, or did you go to some tracks and see the guys, or how'd you get involved that way?
Yeah, I started going to mostly to Madera, and just kind of introduced myself, and then I would post pictures on Facebook of the car, and kind of got to know everybody that way. So
what are some of your most memorable moments, not driving, but maybe going to races?
I was a crew member on the first ever Long Beach Grand Prix, 1975 Formula 5000 race. Mario Andretti, Jody Scheckter, James Hunt, Brian Redmond. So I got to be around those guys at a young age. And then I drove myself for about 16 seasons. And but getting this car on the racetrack was really a highlight for me because it had been about 22 years since I'd been in a car. So I took about 20 years off to get my kids through private university and that type of thing.
Yeah, that'll take your money more than a race car, won't it?
Yeah, well, I got a raise when they graduated, so that allowed me to do this.
Well, it's a beautiful car, Randy. Thank you for sharing your information with us, and hope to see you on the track. And once again, if you're interested in coming out and seeing the Legends of Kearny Bowls race, you can go to their webpage and find out where they're racing at. Thank you, Randy.
Right, thank you, Mike.
So now we've caught up with Al Andrews in the 100 car, beautiful yellow car. So I'll turn around here and we'll face the camera. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your car? Is it your car? Did you buy it from somebody you used to drive, or what's going on?
Well, I used to drive. My cars were always supers. Were 99 cars. Started San Jose in '68 and raced.
That's at the old Speedway, right?
Yeah, the asphalt track. Yeah, and I raced there up to 1975, and then I got into sprint cars. Started running Calistoga and up and down the West Coast, but. My son-in-law runs late models. His name's Eric Schmidt, and he called me from Roseville one day back about 2007. Said, "Hey, there's those little cars you used to run around Roseville." So I go down there, and here's Everett Edlund and Mike McCann and a bunch of the guys I used to race against. So I was on a mission to get a car. I bought a sprint car first. A friend of Frank Sechrist had a Sprinter, and I bought it. It was an old Ascot car, so I set that up for Asphalt. And then a few years later, I was looking for a super, and John McCann and Mike McCann, I used to race against Mike. Right. Mike had this car. They found it. Somebody's getting ready to destroy it.
Yep.
And he brought it up to Oregon, and Mike restored it. And I heard about it, and I ended up buying it. And so we all took turns running at Roseville over the Vintage Classic the last few years. And so since then, I've built a new motor for it and stuff. But we're sitting here with some cars very famous in Brazil.
Right.
Right there in the middle of all of them.
Right. I remember watching Johnny Brazil run years ago, and he was fast. No matter what kind of car he was in, he was real fast. So it's nice to see this car's out there again.
Yeah, probably one other highlight about this car is they had 5 100-lap races the last year at San Jose, and this car set fast time the first race and was leading the first race and blew a motor. But out of the other 4 races, he won 3 of them. So he could have run 4 of the 5. Last races at San Jose.
Yeah, and a 100 lap at San Jose. I mean, it was only a third of a mile, but still, it was so fast. And I think remember watching the main events there. They were 25 laps mainly. It was hard to imagine a 100 lapper.
Yeah, and then the other thing was that the last few years I ran there, and then of course it got even quicker later because it started running the offsets. But I remember when Racino set the record, we had the 18-car main event.
Right.
It was less than 0.4 of a second spread. And back in those days, that's pretty tight stuff.
Well, and if I remember right, there was a handicap system. And so if you won a couple weeks in a row, you were in the back, and and then you come back.
Cars were the highest point runners, and the highest point runner always started dead last.
Right.
Yeah, so it was. If anybody ever raced San Jose, or the out-of-towners that come in for the Golden State Classic and so on, and we had some pretty famous East Coast guys, and they realized that we didn't look like much, but we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, they were running the C main.
Well, or they knew who they were racing against. Yeah. So anyway, it was a very good thing, and I did win main event at Kearney one time.
Okay.
And Howard, in fact, it was the same night Tommy Astone won a midget main. I won the A main at Kearney, and fortunately enough, I had to beat Howard on 3 restarts skating. So. Howard and I have been good buddies ever since.
He's tough and no matter what. So, So Al, since you got this and you've been running it, what are some of the most memorable moments that you have of this car or some of the cars you drove or whatever? What would probably be your top 1, 2, or 3?
Well, my own car, when I won at Kearney, a few weeks before that, I'd flipped it at Clovis. In the San Jose Mercury, a guy named Bruce Richardson was a writer, and in the sports page, he had an article with a picture of that car and says, Old Blue, because they were blue cars, 99. Old Blue battles back, and they had the article about me winning the main event for Kearney. So that's probably my most memorable. I won some main events in sprint cars at Santa Maria, but I was on my own stuff and built my own stuff and motors. I pitted with Ray Otis at the 4-car down there.
Right.
I started with Ray Otis, and I did all his motors and stuff, and then he got hurt at Kearney real bad, broke his arm, and We built the car, and we took turns running it until he got healthy. And I ran my first heat race at San Jose and got second behind Ted Witt. And I thought,
Oh, I got this down, yeah.
I got to do this for sure. So,
Well, great.
Eventually bought a used Ray Fagoni Super and went down from there. So.
Right on. Well, thank you, Al. Appreciate you bringing your car out and sharing it and being a member of the Legends of Kearney Bowl. And once again, don't forget, you can go to their website and check that all out. Well, now we caught up with another legend, Craig Yockey. We're with number 4 Bob's Mobile car. And so, Craig, how did you get started in racing? Is this your car? Talk a little bit about your history with Legends of Kearney Bowl, too.
Well, I got started back in 1969. An old classmate that was a little older than me, I heard he bought a race car, Dennis Meisner out of Madeira. So I started helping him on that, and then I got hooked, and a couple years later I get a car and had guys drive them, Ed Parmeter, and then Jim Klein.
Get out of the way of the camera, Perry.
Jim Klein, we were teamed up.
The hat guy.
And then Ken McGregor at the end, and then it was time for me to move on, so I sold out, and now I got involved with the Legends of Kearney Bowl.
So, where'd you first? Have you been? Are you the driver of this car?
I have driven it, and I don't drive it now because of my lungs.
Right.
My son's going to drive it, and Ray Lawson Jr., he's going to drive it for me.
So, what tracks do you guys race at?
We'll run Madeira, Tulare, and Hanford.
I see you got the asphalt tires on it, so that's the Madeira track. So, do you same car runs on dirt and asphalt?
Same car. All I do is change the tires, put fuel in it.
That's pretty nice. So, did you come about this car yourself, or did you build this, or what was it? Maybe I asked you, but I had the hat guy walk by and probably messed me up here. So,
I come across this car through a friend of mine in San Jose. Actually, it's still his car. We did a handshake deal on it. I'll never sell it. But before this car, I owned the 80 car, which used to be Danny Yopp's car. And then Les Martella had it, and then I bought it from Felix Torres in Fresno, and I restored it. And I had about 10 different drivers get in it and go out and make laps. Bill Vukovic Jr. was even in it one night, made some laps at Madeira. So that's what it's all about to me, is reliving the old times and giving the old drivers a chance to go out and make a lap. They don't have to race, just have a good time.
So what would be one of your most memorable moments?
Of the vintage things here?
Or any of the races you've been to.
Oh, boy, that's hard to say. I know back in 75, I had a Super that Ken McGregor drove. It's something we built at home. We ran the Golden West Classic. I think there was 7 races. And for a home-built car, home-built motor and everything, we ended up 18th in points out of 100 cars, which was pretty amazing. That's a memory for me. So, and my kid's racing now. He builds the micro midgets. He's down in Australia right now at a race. And we've done a lot of good things together. So, a lot of fun.
Right on. Well, thank you for bringing your car out, and it's a beautiful looking color. It's got Bob's Mobile on it. It looks like you could put that on the track today and go out and win some races. So, thank you very much, Craig. We appreciate you being a part of the Legends of the Kearney Bowl.
Thank you.
Well, now we're with Gary Greeno, driver of I don't even know what number car this is, Gary.
I drove number 9 for 6 years.
Okay, so we're here with his little beautiful little car. It's got a 2-seater. Looks like an Esslinger motor or something like that. So how'd you get involved in racing, and tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, it started many, many years ago. I drove on the Kearny Bowl, which was then called Airport Speedway, in 1948 at the age of 13. And my dad had a racetrack on Blackstone, and we had some little cars you could drive 10 laps for 25 cents. And,
10 laps for 25 cents.
Yes, and my dad wanted to get a little publicity, so he said, well, why don't we take 2 of the cars out to Airport Speedway? And there was a clown there that helped with the lineup of the cars. And so I got to race Charlie the Clown at 13 years old, and so that was in 1948. And then and my dad had a midget with a Ferguson, one of the first Ferguson motors in it that was built in his shop. And I've been around racing all my life, and I took time out to start a business and so forth, and decided I wanted to get back in racing, so I started in go-kart, and I drove that for 18 or 20 years. And I started racing go-karts again after I had cancer when I was 60 years old. And I drove a lot, and it kind of helped me in my recovery. And then I got involved with the Legends of Kearny Bowl through my good friend Danny Green, and we raced together, traveling all around for 6 years. And then last year was the last year I drove it all, and I only got like 3 laps in. The steering in the car went haywire. So I decided that at 83 years old it was time to just wrap it up and everything. I'd had a great time doing it. And I learned a lot and made an awfully lot of friends.
So tell us a little bit about your car. What do you got here?
My dad used to own 2 of these track roadsters, and I first got involved with watching them, and I loved them during the years right after the war. And then they built a track in Fresno out at Bullard and Blackstone, which was a 5/8 mile bank track, and the roadsters would come up and race there, but it got so dangerous. 3 of the people were killed, so they shut the track down. It was just too fast for the cars and so forth. And so, but that I told my wife 50 years ago that I'm going to build a car someday, and this was my first car that I built right here. I built this car 15 years ago, and I drew the picture of it, and I built all the body and everything. I did trade for this tub here, but I narrowed it up, and I built all the rest of the car, the frames, the front end, everything on this car is all hand built by myself. Did all the painting and the upholstery and everything, and it was just a labor of love, really. And I took it to a lot of car shows, and it won Good Guys show one time. So I don't get much of a chance to show it anymore because I have trouble getting in and out of it. But racing is one of the greatest things I ever got involved with.
So I see on the side it's got the Greeno Special. I can remember quite a few cars years ago. It was the so-and-so special, the so-and-so special. Mm-hmm. Do you know how that came about? Or?
Well, they were all specials then. You didn't buy the race car in a box and assemble it. Every car was hand-built in a barn, a shop, a garage, or something like that. Individuals actually built the car themselves. And some of them were real nice cars, and some of them were pretty ratty because people didn't have the experience and the know-how to really build a decent car, and the welds were kind of bad on them. Just like some of the cars in Legends of Kearny Bowl, we discover sometimes after they've been sandblasted that the welds were covered with Bondo, and they were very unsafe. And so it's one of the things that we had to watch out for when we were getting all this started. We started out with when I got involved about 8 years ago, we started out with 4 cars, and when I finished last year, we had about 32. The people, and it was just a bunch of old guys having a good time and fun, and everybody helping everybody else out. That was a really great part of it because it reminded me so much of the old days.
Well, and that's too. The old days, you made, if you bent a tie rod or whatever, you didn't go down to O'Reilly Auto Parts and buy it. You bent it back, went to the shop or went to the junkyard and got whatever you needed. I mean, that's that fabrication. It's best with, people that are 80-something years old. I mean, my father-in-law was that way. He could fix anything.
Right.
So it's interesting that you guys still do that with each other.
That's what's so great about it because there's a lot of individualism involved in all these cars, and it always has been in this type of thing. But now it's changed into a manufactured off-the-shelf type car, which I don't know. The fans aren't as great as they used to be. That's sad that's happened, but I think the biggest part of it is the friends you make in racing. I know I had 2 go-karts set up for my grandsons to run. To go ahead and start their racing careers. And my daughter says, Dad, I would rather they didn't become involved. She said, I've watched you all these years. And she said, I was nervous the whole time. And she says, I could just see me with 2 sons out there. I'd be a nervous wreck. Right. And I said, well, it's a good thing because it teaches them, You can learn just about everything in life at a racetrack.
That's true.
You can learn to be humble, and you can learn to be graceful in your winning, and you learn how to get along with other people. And it's really, if you would use the ethics that the racing used to be, I'm not sure about now, but you'd be a good citizen of our country.
Well, there we have it. Beautiful car restored. Well said on what goes on at the racetrack. I know a lot of people used to think that when you went to the racetrack, it was a bunch of hoodlum and fights always broke out. And yes, that did happen and still happens today. But, it's great to have cars like this. And thank you for helping out on Kearny Bowl.
Thank you very much. Appreciated it.
Well, now we're here with two living legends, believe me. And if you don't believe me, ask them. These are the legends of Kearny Bowl, Santa Maria, you name it. These two guys have been around. First one is Anthony Guillard.
Hello.
Yeah, goodbye, thank you. And Jack Hageman. So, Jack, we're going to start with you first since I already know this guy. So how'd you get involved in racing, and what do you do? And I heard this is you helped build this car or something like that.
Well, this particular one right here, not only Shabs had it, was the very first super modified body I built for San Jose Speedway. And of course I built probably 80% of the ones after that. And there's 2 or 3 more of them here that I built. Where I got started, probably in 1961 or 2, started doing it because my dad did it forever. And I picked up all his stuff and been doing it ever since. I've been doing it for probably 55 years, and I'm retired now and just working mostly on my own stuff.
Yeah, we've been up to your shop, and it's pretty interesting how all that stuff, it's a small shop, but it's amazing what comes out of there. So how'd you get into fabricating? Through your dad?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, again, he did it, started in probably 42 after the war. And then, of course, when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. I went in the Navy and got out and started working on my own business and a few jobs here and there, and just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, that's good. So you helped build this car. What other cars? I mean, when we were up at your shop, you were talking about all kinds of stuff. And wasn't there a car that you built like from the ground up, all aluminum body and everything that was up there?
A few of those. Some of them are famous, some of them aren't. Probably, God, I don't know, maybe 35 years ago, I built the James Conner Special. That was an old Indy car, an old Guillard monocot Indy car. And that's what we started with, was the tub, and then we just kind of went out from there and built the 4-seater Indy car for him. And yeah, it was a show car for a while. Probably in a museum now someplace, as far as I know.
Yeah. Well, if we can get him back over here, we'd like to talk to the owner of the 10 car, Anthony Guillard. So talk to me about your car. Where'd you get it? How'd it come around? And who were some of the drivers?
Well, this is a family car that my dad and my Uncle Harry built. My dad, Tony, and Uncle Harry built in 1965. It's the first tube-frame car that the Guillard brothers had. And Clyde Palmer was the main driver of this car. And they raced this probably for a couple years at San Jose Speedway before they built the next new one. And there was a short period of time there where they ran the old car with either Bert Foland or Joe Leonard drove it for a while, different guys, and then Clyde drove the main car, and so it was Clyde Palmer. He was one of the big 3 at the time.
So how'd you guys get the car? I know it used to be in the family, and then did you get it back, or is that something that just a rumor I've heard, or how did you acquire the car?
Well, I ended up purchasing the car back from Mike Guillard, who's a local guy here in the Fresno area, friend of Jim Perry's, and we knew he had the car. And he actually had promised to sell it to Jim for him to restore. And then we found out about it, and he was nice enough to let the car stay in the family. So we bought the car from Mike, and then it's kind of nice because the same people that built the car in 1965 actually restored the car. Clyde painted it, and my dad and Pinky, his good friend, built the rest of it. And it was just kind of neat that the same people that built it in 1965 also got to restore it.
So some of the big wins for this car are?
Oh, boy. Well, won a lot of races. This car, probably not too many big ones as the car previous to this. The car they had in 1961 and 62 won a lot of races, won the Grape Stakes and the Kearny Bowl track. It won Johnny Key race at San Jose. It won a lot of big races, won the state championship in 61, won the track championships. This car kind of came along a little bit later in Clyde's career. He was his abilities were kind of going a little bit backwards, and he was a front runner, but I don't think they had the same success and the same wins, as they were starting getting into this era of cars. But in the early 60s, they were the guys to beat.
So one of the things we've always talked about is how you've restored it to how it was when it was on the racetrack. Why is that important to you?
Well, I think that was Dad's idea and Clyde's. You know, we wanted to look like it was raced. We didn't want it to look like a show car. So there's some dings in there that they actually remembered how they got there. So we left all the little blemishes on it and just restored it so it looked like it came off the track. So it's ready to race.
Well, great. Thank you, Anthony, for bringing your car down and being a member of the Legends of Kearney Bowl.
You're welcome.
So now we're once again back with Bob Hutton, and he's got a bunch of old photos that he's collected over the years, and he's going to talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, we got a lot of photos here from late 50s to 60s, and at the end of 70s. So, because he stopped racing super modifieds in 1970, and he went racing sprint cars from 70 to 75. Yeah, and yeah, really, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we got a pretty good array. There's more, but I don't have more.
All right, we're back after a few technical difficulties, but once again with Bob Hutton. And Bob, what's this photo about?
This is a photo of the race car behind you.
Hopefully it's in there.
Circle 45.
Circle 45, right behind us there. So where's this picture at, and who's in it?
This picture is at Clovis Speedway, and he had won the trophy dash and the main event that same night.
So who is that?
That's my dad, Herman Hutton.
Oh, okay.
With the middle name Squirman.
So back then they had trophy girls that handed out the trophies.
All the time.
Pretty nice. So what is another one? What about this one? What's this one here with all the cars crashed?
This is Oakland Indoor Midgets.
Oakland Indoors.
This picture of him actually in the car.
That's you driving the car?
That's my dad driving.
Oh, your dad driving the car. So how'd you come about all these photos?
Just collecting through the years. Some at tracks and some online and some given. Yeah, so that's how I got all of them.
So how about this Legends of Kearney Bowl one that's right here?
That's the latest ones that a fellow named Bob Nyguy had put together. And it's pretty much a photo of all the drivers of Legends of Kearney Bowl.
So there's all kinds of people on here. It looks like a picture of, is that the old Kearney Bowl?
Yes,
the picture of the old Kearney Bowl?
Speedway.
Because I noticed that, there's some beautiful cars.
Kenny Takaguchi.
Oh yeah, everybody knows Kenny. I already interviewed that guy. He's like a living legend. Of course, then he's on the other one, front page. So.
Yeah, this is stage 2 and this is stage 3. Stage 1 I don't have.
Well, we appreciate you bringing out your stuff and showing everybody. I've seen a lot of people looking at them, and Bob, we appreciate you trying to keep the living legends of Kearney Bowl still alive, because as people get older, they forget about this stuff, and it's nice to have photos like this to remember people by. So thank you, Bob.
Right, thank you.
Well, now we're with another Legends of Kearney Bowl legend, and standing in front of the 45 car, which you guys just saw fire up and everything, with Jerry Turner. So, Jerry, how'd you get involved in auto racing and legends, and do you have a car out here or anything else like that?
I was running motorcycles, and hardtops came along, and they were paying a whole lot more money. When we started this in about 1952 or 3, you could build a main event car for $300. Wow. And the purse we were running for was around over $3,000 every Friday night.
And where was this at?
Kearney Bowl.
Kearney Bowl.
And they started with, like I say, that I've always maintained that racers are the dumbest bastards there is.
That is absolutely correct.
Because we're running for a $3,000 purse, running all year on an engine. Next year we have a meeting, we say, let's go to hopped up engines, let's put heads on. So now everyone spends $300, we're still running for the same purse, running a little bit faster. So now we wear out more tires, more race cars. Next year we say, well, let's do this. So pretty soon we're running a $30,000 car for a $3,000 purse. I always was kind of confused with that.
So you used to drive these cars and stuff?
Yes. Till Kearney Bowl quit, and probably 68 or so is when Kearney Bowl folded up.
So did you only race at Kearney Bowl, or where else did you go?
Clovis and Kearney.
Okay, so you were in the Fresno area here.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most memorable moments that you have on driving these old cars? I remember watching these at the old San Jose Speedway. I never got down to Kearny Bowl or Fresno or Clovis or those, but I do remember these cars. What would be one of the most memorable moments you had as either a driver, owner, or picker?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. I broke up a few cars.
That means you crashed?
Yes. I remember one night on probably first lap, turn 3, I ran over one of Al's wheels, and that cartwheeled me. When I got through, went about 3 or 4 times down the straightaway, there wasn't a wheel left on the car that wasn't broken, plus everything else on the car. Then one other time that was kind of unusual, I was going down the straightaway in hot laps, and the engine blew, and the oil came back. Well, the oil was cool by the time it hit my face. But whenever a situation like that arose, you'd always loop the car to the left, which I did. Looped to the left, slid into the crash wall backwards. Joe Leonard came along, hit my oil, and locked up. So I sat in the car with the back end busted up, the engine blown up, and Joe Leonard sitting on the front of the race car.
Wow. So let's talk about some of the safety stuff that they had back then. I mean, you guys didn't have fire suits or full face helmets, or what did you guys wear when you were driving those kind of cars?
Whatever you have.
Go ahead. It'll pick it up.
Whatever you happened to have was fine. You had to have a safety belt and a helmet.
So just like a lap belt that went across?
Belt, yes. When shoulder harnesses came in, there was a lot of people didn't want them at all. It was mandated.
Yeah, did they feel that maybe having the shoulder harnesses would hold you in the car?
Well, let me tell you a story about Johnny Brazil. Johnny had run midgets in the 30s, and on midgets, if you got in trouble, you had rags taped around the driveline. If you got in trouble, you'd grab the driveline and suck yourself down as small as you could get. It was at Clovis, and said the shoulder harness was just coming in. Johnny was driving someone else's car in a one-night deal. He got in the car, they handed him the shoulder harness. He said, "I don't want that shit." They said, "You better put it on." He said, "I don't want shoulder harness." Anyway, during the event, he got in trouble, end over end, and whoever car it was, to this day, no one had been owning the car. They had exhaust tubing roll bars.
Oh.
So it naturally crushed the roll bars right down, but by instinct, Johnny grabbed the torque tube and sucked himself down. If he'd had the harness, he wouldn't have been here.
Wow. So how'd you get involved with the Legends of Kearny Bowl?
Just because I've known them all my life.
And you're old? Is that what it is? You have to be old to do it, or?
Well, I'm not very old. I'm 90.
Oh, 90?
90.
Holy crap. You do a good job for that. So are you like one of the members, founding members and stuff like
Well, I was there when they started, yes.
that? I guess you'd be one of the founding members.
When they started.
Well, I think it's a great deal that's going on today, and Jim Turner, we appreciate your insight and the history that you have of the sport, and we hope to see you again back here next year.
I'll be here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my good man. Thank you.
Well, now we met a veteran, and Bill Phillip is here today to talk about it, and you can see on the hood of the car we've got the Legends of Kearny Bowl shirt, hat, and a special pin here. And Bill, so what's so special about this day today for you?
Well, I really grew up watching the super modifieds at San Jose Speedway, the camaraderie that working on the cars. I started getting in the pits probably the late 60s, and started working on the cars, and then it became fabricating cars and repairing cars, and this whole re-emergence of all the super modifieds has been great. I'm currently putting a car together. I've been helping Mike Sargent for the last 5-6 years, putting the cars together that he's done. It's just been nice to see all the people that you knew or didn't know but knew of them from back in the day, and it's just been really fun to be in this atmosphere of people that have a like interest.
Yeah, the Legends of Kearny Bowl seems to be growing every year when I come down here, and I think there were probably 25 cars and over 100 people here today for the luncheon, and a lot of the bench stories, the bench racing that people were talking about. Is there any one memorable one for you that stands out in your mind of racing up when you were growing up as a kid and helping out maybe now today?
Well, I was a Marshall Sargent fan back when I was a little kid, and now that I work with Mike Sargent, it kind of like full circle. So Mike and I knew of each other, but didn't really hang together. But about 5 years ago, when he started building the red 5, or I guess it's a red 7 car, pardon me, we got together and kind of been hanging together for the last 5 years. So,
right on. Well, thank you for coming out today. Appreciate you supporting the group, and thank you for your service too.
Thank you.
So once again, Bill Phillip. Well, Jim Perry, once again, it's been a very wonderful, exciting day here, seeing all these vintage race cars, and everybody I talk to just cannot thank you enough for what you do and your guys for putting this on. I talked to a lot of guys today and found a lot of interesting stories and how these cars came about, and it's great that guys like you bring this back and so people can relive it.
Well, that's been one of my passions from the first time I saw these cars run when I was back at probably 8, 9, 10 years old at Kearny Bowl, and then over the years I got to see them in the cars that you see here today at that stage, which was during the 60s, and then got married, had kids. We kind of got away from this a little bit, but then later on the passion kind of came back, and I wanted to buy a car, and so I found one, and I started restoring it, and then it's like a fever. They call it a Perry fever, and then from there it just kept getting worse and worse, or maybe better and better, and this is what you see today.
Well, and I was talking with your wife earlier, and she loves helping out and everything like that, and she says the passion that you have for making sure people can still see these old race cars is tremendous. On behalf of everybody that attended today, Jim, I just want to let you know we appreciate what you do, and thank you very much for everything, and hopefully come back next year and we'll talk to some of these same people and maybe a few more. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.